Sådär, vi fortsätter den här bolagsdagen. Näst på tur är Cloetta. Den här presentationen kommer hållas på engelska. So with that, I leave the stage over to the company CEO, Henri de Sauvage. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. If you can click to the next slide, I'll try to give you a bit of an introduction into Cloetta and our strategic framework and what we are trying to achieve, and then we have some questions. So a company more than 100 years old, about 6.5 billion in sales, predominantly in Northwestern Europe, but with a strong export strategy as well, 8 factories, and then a number of key categories, and also a new purpose, which is we believe in the power of true joy. I'll come back to that. If you go to the next slide, you can see our main markets, so the 4 Nordic markets, and then UK as well. I could add Germany to that as well, where we have a number 3-4 position in candy. Yeah, what are the strategic strengths or the investment case? It's strong local brands in an economic stable region, in particular the local brands, very important. That's, if you look at McKinsey or Nielsen, that's where the trend is going towards, with a more or less double growth on those brands who can exploit that versus the big global ones, which of course a few years ago was very much in fashion. We also some strong consumer trends supporting pick and mix long term, plastic free, individual choice, but also retailers wanting to bring more in-store theater into their own physical stores now that e-commerce is growing. As said, we have an opportunity to double our international sales. We have, prior to COVID, in our track record with 8 quarters of growth of our branded business. Candy is quite non-cyclical, I would say. There's a lot of margin expansion we can still do, and we're also able to generate more cash flow. So if you go to the next slide, you can see a few of our local brands. That's actually where the strength of the business, like the majority of our brands, but what we're trying to do is also to create more leverage and scale by using some of these brands across markets like Jelly Bean or of course Läkerol, but also some platforms go under Malaco, which is then our Swedish brand, going into Red Band, for example, in Holland and into Germany. Jelly Bean being one of the export brands which are going into Australia, Asia, US, Canada, etc. So quite a nice portfolio of brands, I would say. If you go to the next. Yeah, so we just redone our purpose, where we say, okay, the true joy and then the power around that joy in the end, of course, is the ultimate essence of what we try to do. It's people, putting a piece of chocolate or a candy or a pastel in their mouth and experiencing this millisecond of pleasure, right? You can measure that in the brain, where you put people into a scanner, that the pleasure zone lights up when people eating our products. And of course, in the current world with economic instability, political instability, health concerns, it is these small moments where we then say we bring the true to it, which is very much about the ingredients, the enjoyment, also the heritage of the brands, the fact that we are coming from local heritage, and then the power around is that these moments can be enhanced, whether you're drinking a cup of coffee with a friend and you eat a fudge from Lonka with it, or you're sitting on the couch on Saturday evening enjoying Melodifestivalen or a soccer match, and you're having a bag with candy with the whole family. So quite powerful in the sense that I really want the whole company to think consumer. Yeah, and that's maybe not what you think I should be talking about, but if people think consumer, that is, in my opinion, my strong opinion, where the money starts to come into this business. So if everybody starts to think consumer, standing in store, first moment of truth when they're buying the product, second moment of truth when they're eating it and enjoying it, that's where the money starts to come in. Consumers paying our customers paying us, and that ultimately leads to shareholder value and a good EBIT journey. And we've also updated our sustainability strategy, tried to go from a follower to leading in the pack with 3 main areas. Choices for you, which is quite important in our category, that we are providing choice and clarity to people who want to reduce their sugar intake. Also natural ingredients, dental propositions, etc., etc. And then the second pillar is people. Of course, our employees have a safe environment for people to work in, but also our suppliers and ultimately our farmers in Ivory Coast producing cocoa. How do we make sure that they are making a decent living? And also connecting with society, which I think is also one of the things which very strongly comes from the Cloetta heritage, with an example, the whole Jungsbro village built around the Cloetta factory over there. And then, of course, last but not least is our footprint. So our climate action, we're signing up to the science-based targets initiative, sustainable sourcing, reducing plastic, less transportation, more transportation by rail, biofuels, etc., etc. So this is something we haven't formally launched with a lot of details, but this is now our new leading principle to start working more proactively on a Cloetta sustainability agenda. Next. Yeah, so what are we doing? What are we trying to shift from, let's say, 1917, 18 onwards? Is we used to have a strategy called Munchy Moments, which was all about acquiring companies which fitted in the Munchy Moments, you could say portfolio. And we said, no, we're going to create organic growth. We're going to grow the business we have, the brands we have, and we're not going to look out the outside and not assume that the grass is greener with other companies. And so far, I think pre-COVID, we've been able to show that that is the right strategy, and we can actually become stronger where we are already strong. Yeah, then on the bottom line, we've done very good journey particularly in restructuring. A lot of plants were closed, and that was enhancing the margin. Now we need to go to organic margin expansion. So again, how can we improve our gross margins? How can we work with valorization, get better pay for both the branded business, but certainly also the pick and mix business in order to come to a 14% EBIT target. If you go to the next one, you can see that we have a number of core markets and core categories. So if you look at the markets first, Sweden being very important, secondly Finland, and we run them also as 2 separate countries. So one head for Sweden, one head for Finland, and Norway, Denmark, we run together, 15% of our business, and then the Netherlands and Germany we run together as one business, also Red Band being the brand across these 2 markets, and then UK and international markets we run under the leadership of somebody who's worked both in the UK and been living in Asia, running an export market for a big confectionery company. And of course, all these markets have their different roles to play, be it more growth, be it more profitability, be it less indirects. But so far, I'm quite pleased with the strategic roles and the strategic delivery in those areas. If we then look at the core categories, you can see that candy and chocolate and pastilles is the main of our business. And then we have 2 markets with chewing gum, both Finland and the Netherlands, good profitability, so also quite important. And then we have the Nutisal business, which we acquired, and a bit of other business next to that. If you go to the next one. So what are the financial goals? I already talked about the organic growth, 1 to 2% growth. We've been achieving that in 18 on the branded business and in 19 overall. EBIT margin to 14%. You could see that we were on our way up after the acquisition of Candy King, which diluted the EBIT margin in 17. Now with COVID coming in, of course, we have been thrown off that trajectory, but we'll come back. Net debt over EBITDA around 2.5, and a dividend policy which is 40 to 60% of the profit. I think we should have a tick over there as well because that's what. Sorry. not this year, but I mean up to this year, we're not making the 14% or the 1 to 2% either. But these are the financial goals. If we go to the next one. Yeah, so what is then the roadmap to 40%? If we take 19 as the starting point, we have our branded growth, which is able to deliver around 1% margin over the period. Pick and mix. We've done the integration. Now it is time to really raise prices and get more premium offers in there. We mentioned in our Capital Markets Day, we called out Sweden with minus 60 million loss on the year where we bought an integrated Candy King. So that alone is already 1%. Perfect Factory is our way, we call the lean journey. So that is very much about improving existing machinery and getting more bang for our bucks, you could say. So if we have an 8-hour shift, are we producing 6 hours or 7 hours or 5 hours? And if we produce 5 hours, I mean, what do we do the other 3 hours? The changeover, cleaning, but also maybe maintenance or breakdowns or waiting for products. And there, even with COVID, we've done a nice improvement year on year over there. Then we are running a zero-based budgeting program to reduce our indirects. You can also see that coming through in the results. And then we used to work very much as isolated islands, in particular commercially, but also the functions like HR and finance and supply chain. And we created a program called One Cloetta to really start to work together, leverage best practice, leverage our marketing capabilities under a new chief marketing officer, going to one media buying agency, becoming more professional, and also doing this in a lower cost base. We go to the next one. Yeah, so what are the key business priorities we are driving? It's simple. It's a simple business. One is to drive the branded growth. Why? Because branded already has more than 14% EBIT. So if we grow more in branded, we improve the EBIT of total business. Pick and mix. We need to get pick and mix to sustainable value creation. So we've stopped with the volume hunt, which we did prior to 2017, both in Candy King and in Cloetta. I mean, just hunting volume to fill factories, but not making any money, or maybe even worse, like in Sweden, losing money of it. That is not a sustainable strategy. So step by step, we're getting there. And then the third one is efficiency and cost. Efficiency very much the factory. And that's quite nice because all capacity we create by running more efficiently, we can actually use by insourcing products for pick and mix or to facilitate the growth in the branded business, which we have been seeing. And cost is the ZBB program. If we go to the next, you could see what are then the trends supporting Cloetta. So if we go to the first one, I already talked a bit about go to the next, on the local brands. It is very strongly so that consumers are year on year preferring local brands. Depends a bit on the category. If you go to dairy, where I've been, it's up to 70% where people say I prefer dairy coming from my own country, but also in candy, cookies, snacking, it's 30% plus in general. So that is quite nice for us because this is the base, the bread and butter of our business. If we go to the next one. Yeah, there's quite some growth opportunity. There's a few over here. So the confectionery market in Northwestern Europe is growing 1.9%. It's all value growth and no volume growth. That's where Cloetta needs to become much better in valorization. So selling more expensive products or products at a premium, like we do with the 30% less sugar, which is being sold at a 20% premium versus the original Gotteblanda or Venco or Red Band products. And then there is the second opportunity is to double our business in international markets. And we say we want to double that and create another strong pillar under Cloetta. It's not that we are venturing completely into new territories with new brands. A lot of these brands have been there for the last 50, 60 years, all built on the heritage of either Läkerol or Red Band or even Cloetta. And there's the third one, which is then the growth opportunity with pick and mix. If we have solved the profitability of pick and mix, then this is a fantastic consumer trend to capture first in the markets where we are existing. But just one figure would be in Sweden, 30% of total confectionery sales is in pick and mix. In the UK, it's only 1%, and then there are 60 million people in the UK. Go to the next. Yeah, also impulse channels. That is a strategy we were very much pushing prior to Corona. Also to create other channels than just the supermarkets, also in the light of e-commerce, of course, growing, and that it might be more difficult on e-commerce to get impulse sales, which now it proves it isn't. But of course, that's the beauty with these kind of products. You can basically sell that in many locations because it's an impulse product. So we've been pushing very hard here. You will see us now as well in Clas Ohlson, in Bauhaus, in many different places. Of course, these are also the places which have been hard hit by the COVID, so that has not played into our advantage. But long term, absolutely the right strategy to be where the consumers are. Next. Yeah, less plastic and better plastic. So there's still a lot to do on less plastic. A big program to reduce the plastic we use to transport our pick and mix products into the stores, but also better plastics. We're going out from PVC. Big investment we're doing in Belgium to get rid of PVC in Germany, and also our plant-based plastics, which we're now blending into Kotteblandat and Red Band in Holland to go out from oil-based plastics into vegetable, you could call it like that, plastic. So liked by the consumers, and of course something we claim as well for pricing reasons because it's more expensive plant pack. Next. Choice. I mean, many of you might say, well, is this something which I should invest in? Because isn't sugar an important trend? Yes, sugar is an important trend. I thought so as well when I started. But then if you ask consumers, what do you think about sugar and sugar confectionery? People are looking a bit and saying, are you crazy? Of course, I know there is sugar in candy. But, you know, life becomes very tragic when I'm only drinking water and bread. I still want to enjoy my moments, whatever, the Saturday or the coffee. And as long as I know what I'm taking, I'm perfectly okay with this. It's not hidden sugar. People are angry or more talking about sugar in soft drinks or in yogurts or in ketchup. They know it is over here. And still we are providing choice. In all markets, we have 30% less sugar variants of our main articles available. I tend to see that a little bit like Coca-Cola probably in the 70s launched their Diet Coke. The guys in Atlanta probably said, why the hell are you doing that? Now that's bigger than regular Coke. We don't know where it is going to go with candy, but we just want to occupy the position so we have that position and not one of our competitors. I'm going to go to the next. The next was already a Q&A. That was good. Yeah, exactly on time.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Henri, for that presentation. Just a question from me regarding the COVID-19. Can you give us a quick briefing how that pandemic has an impact on Cloetta and how you're working with that?
Yeah, now it has had a bigger impact on us than maybe other FMCG companies who are only in the supermarket channel. So there's basically two things which have impacted us. And by far the biggest is pick and mix. That in several countries, not in Sweden, but in several countries during the Q2, Q3 period, customers have closed down pick and mix because they felt there were too many people standing in front of the shelf, not keeping the 1.5 meters distance. That has now been solved, but we still need to regain the promotional levels, and we also have lost some consumers who have basically stopped buying any food products which is not wrapped 3 times in a piece of plastic. So very contrary to the long-term trend. But in these times of uncertainty, that is something you can imagine. That is by far the biggest impact we had, but of course it was a big impact because in Q2 you could see our pick and mix sales going down with 50%. Now, we don't make that much profitability on it, as I just explained, so it's more a fixed cost leverage which we miss, and of course we can take some of these costs down. The second effect is then the impulse channels, so all the kiosk, the 7-Elevens, the railway stations, the petrol stations, people working at home and not traveling as much as before. And that also have impacted us, but that is slowly coming back as well.
Okay, perfect. And if you can go back to that, if you compare the profit split between the packed product and pick and mix.
Yes.
So you are more profitable in the packaged product and pick and mix. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so on the packaged, the branded business, as we call it, it's more than 14% EBIT, and on the pick and mix, it's single digit still, and with the exception of Sweden, where we make a loss. Okay. Yeah, and the Sweden loss, we had an ambition or even a promise that by the end of this year, so let's say now in Q4, we would go through the threshold of break even with very hefty price increases of 15% every time. But given the fact that our merchandising costs have not been able to shrink as fast as the sales went down, we stated that we are not able to do this in 2020, but that it will happen in 2021.
Okay, perfect. But during this pandemic time, did you experience any problem with the supply chain, or has that worked perfectly?
No, we were very fast. I mean, I think before it was even called COVID-19. So this was in week 9. We decided to stop all traveling in Cloetta, and we also decided in all factories to split our shifts, so that, let's say, where we work with 3 shifts on a day, that the shifts are not in contact with each other. And we were quite quick within 1 or 2 weeks to look at all the working stations and make people separated with more than 2 meters from each other. And next to that, we took a quick decision to increase our raw material stock on critical items. And we're sourcing from the whole world. There were red zone countries like China then and Italy where we got products or raw materials from. So we have not seen any disruption in the supply chain. But of course, a knock-on effect was that we were not selling as much pick and mix as we were planning for in the Easter. So that actually in Q2, at the end of Q2, we had a stock level which was too high, but we've taken care of that during Q3 by stopping some of the production lines during the summer period to bring down stock levels and convert that into cash. And that you could have seen in Q3 results was a nice achievement.
Okay, perfect. And lastly, can you comment a bit about the competitive landscape? Has that shifted during the pandemic, or how do you see on that?
No, I don't think within FMCG these things don't shift so quickly. So in each country we have a different set of main competitors, and there's not much change over there. Of course, we're looking at public information like our big American competitor stating that they went down 18% with their candy and chewing gum business in Q3 to just get a feel where others are in during this pandemic. But there's no big dramatic changes in that sense.
Okay.
And also we of course we change implementation, but our overall strategy to focus on the branded growth, because we make more than 14%, making those brands stronger, be more efficient in the media, spending also now in absolute sense more on our brands to get that growth. I mean, that is of course still the strategy, but we're changing in the execution. We moved away from outdoor advertising when nobody's traveling on the buses or the trains anymore. It doesn't make any sense. So it's much more, of course, towards Netflix or even traditional TV, you could say. And on pick and mix, there we need to even hurry up with our cost reductions, because if you have 10 or 20 or 50% less volume, you need to also reduce your cost. And in many countries, we are also doing the merchandising of Pick and Mix. So it's us putting the products into the shelves. And if you have suddenly half the volume, you also need to reduce hours and driving times, etc., etc. So that remains the same, I would say. And then I'm very happy that we had the zero-based budgeting program, because we had full transparency of our costs. And that's one of the strong points during this year, that we've been able to deliver cost savings to mitigate part of the EBIT drop. And the Perfect Factory program has been continued to run, even though our experts were not able to travel to our factory in Slovakia or Belgium. The enthusiasm of the people on the shop floor was such that they kept it going themselves, which I think is also quite positive for the future, that is really embedded in the culture over there.
Perfect. Thank you, Henri, for that presentation, and have a pleasant evening.
Thank you. Good luck. Bye-bye.